Oh no, Sonic.exe is coming after me. I'll just let him grab me. Why not, ladies and gentlemen? You know, it's crazy to think that this is one of the most popular videos that I've ever had when I started out on my channel, covering creepypastas, things of that nature. You know, people take cute little children's games and turn them into demonic beings. You know, some could say that this might not be safe for work. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? Thankfully, I live in a world where the internet isn't censored. But it is! Now, this is a site called itch.io, and if you ever want to play a Sonic.exe game, boy oh boy, plenty of them are available right here for your viewing pleasure. Now, for example, this is a game called Night at the Motel, ladies and gentlemen, and it's got that cute little PlayStation 1 aesthetic. But a lot of games on itch.io come from these indie developers that use itch.io not just a means of distribution, but also a means of actually making money. So if you want to play games like this, that is an amazing website to go to. But obviously, those games only matter as long as they are completely safe for work. Now, what do I mean by that, ladies and gentlemen? Well, yesterday night, before I went to bed, I saw something that blew my mind. An update on NSFW content. We have de-indexed all adult NSFW games from our browse and search pages. We understand this action is sudden and disruptive, and it really is. Like, literally within 24 hours, everything NSFW got completely de-indexed. And this statement from them isn't doing it justice, because not only did games get de-indexed, but apparently if you had bought an NSFW game with your own hard-earned money, that also apparently got removed from your purchases. Your purchases were literally wiped from existence. At least some of them. Now again, before somebody takes what I just said as gospel, obviously some of the people that were purchasing this kind of stuff, there's contention. Some of the games aren't deleted, some of them are just shadow banned, and one user's like certain games in my library are being suspended from posting files, removing or hiding their page overall. So yeah, even if it seems like you might have bought something, probably a bit of an issue. Now, thankfully, for now at least, there is itch.io Games NSFW, which if you want to access this, you can. Now look, a lot of these games are probably, let's be completely honest, visual novels with a lot of porn material attached to them. And while I wouldn't be somebody that is playing them, what I am really against is censorship, okay? And I'm against censorship because when you read the next paragraph, it becomes pretty apparent. So recently we came under scrutiny from our payment processors, so Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, whoever they use to process the payments, right? The moral arbiters of our world now, the people that can control what anybody can consume on the internet without a government entity, without people just voting for it anymore, okay? So they talk about a game called No Mercy, which is a game where I believe there was like the fantasy of assaulting an individual, right? And yeah, it was temporarily available on itch.io, but then it was banned in April. So obviously the organization, Collective Shout, launched a campaign against Steam and itch.io, directing concerns to our payment processor. So for a game as deplorable as No Mercy was, right, it wasn't deplorable enough for Steam or itch.io. However, it was deplorable for Visa, MasterCard, or any of these payment processors. So apparently these payment processors then started threatening Steam and now itch.io. Now obviously, if Steam isn't fighting back, even with billions of dollars obviously in their arsenal, I would not imagine an indie game platform to ever be thinking of fighting back too, okay? This is where I do somewhat sympathize with all of these, platforms. They have put the blame on the real culprit, the fucking payment processor, okay? So I don't want you guys getting mad at itch.io and bringing up old things like, itch.io is not for prudes. If you click our link, please be careful about what you might see. Filthy emoji sunglasses. I'm sure when it comes time for your business to effectively be threatened into shutting down, anybody is going to comply, as sad as that sounds. Our ability to process payments is critical for every creator, okay? This is a time-critical moment for itch.io. The situation developed rapidly, and we had to act urgently in order to protect the platform's core payment infrastructure. Unfortunately, this meant it was not realistic to provide creators with advance notice before making this change. So here's what I imagine has happened to that Collective Shout organization. Went to, their payment processor friends, and they were like, that site itch.io, there's a lot of NSFW porn on there. You might want to look into that. Now look, This is something that has kind of blown up. You know, back in, a few years ago, if you ever watch my channel, I covered things like Trafficking Hub, where, again, it was an entire campaign to get sites like the Hub and get adult websites to shut down a lot of the exploitation they did to real women and children, okay? There were documented cases of real human beings being impacted by these sites hosting what was their adult content. In some cases, people who were minors. And in this case, law enforcement, more specifically, the judicial system actually brought in companies like Visa to be liable for a civil lawsuit in this situation. Now, this is a touchy subject, and this is where I do somewhat understand why a payment processor would have a knee-jerk reaction. Because ultimately, that story involved real human beings, okay? Real human beings who did almost everything they could, even to the point of impersonating lawyers, before they started going to the payment processor. So obviously, I could imagine with a real human being, with real human damage, things do change. But everything that we're talking about here is a video game. It's an NSFW video game that does not violate US law, that apparently did not violate itch.io's terms of service or Steam's. But suddenly, because Visa, MasterCard, PayPal were like, that's not okay, get the fuck off the internet. Now, the thing about it is, I'm obviously against censorship because who knows where it ends, right? Remember, NSFW can almost be a blanket term sometimes. Imagine down the road that there's an organization that hates violent video games. So all of a sudden, that game we looked at in the beginning, Sonic.exe, ooh, it's a little violent. Has some kid themes in it, it's a kid game, but with violence. Imagine if you had, somebody who were so anti-gun they wanted to get rid of games like Ready or Not. Well, now they found out the cheat code. Just go to the payment processor. Send like 1,000 emails saying that you're fucking outraged. Maybe bring up the fact that you want to protect the children by banning fictional fucking content. And boom, all of a sudden, they make one call and your game's gone forever, okay? People like Jack Thompson, people in the industry that have always been clamoring for a way to censor media, have been finding ways but you know what? This cheat code was founded by an Australian firm right here. It's crazy to think. So they were probably itch.io in this case, threatened to remove all this content within like 24 hours, or they just straight up ban you from using PayPal, Visa, or, MasterCard, whatever payment processors they used at all forever. Which obviously, if that happens, like almost 100% of their sales just stop overnight. Because how the fuck are you going to make money if you can't process the payment? So now they're conducting a comprehensive audit of content to ensure that we can meet our requirements for our payment processors. Pages will remain de-indexed as we complete our review. Once this review is complete, they've got new compliance measure. For NSFW pages, this will include a new step where creators must confirm that their content is allowable under the policies of the respective payment processors linked to their account. So again, we live in a world where the TOS no longer matters, okay? Their TOS is like secondary. The first TOS for any site you go to is obviously PayPal or, Visa or MasterCard, the payment processor. They're the ones that control what you and I get to consume on the internet, okay? They're the ones that control what you and I can view. And again, if you don't see the implications, it's not about the porn game, okay? Forget the game for a minute. It's about that being the easiest way to enter this ideology into the mainstream. Because we've seen this happen before, right? Like debanking is actually a thing, right? It happened in a lot of cases, even a lot of political cases, for instance, too. There was a whole trucker convoy protest that happened back in Canada where like emergency acts got brought in. And I believe there were like a couple like 100 accounts, which granted in the larger scheme of things, maybe didn't matter all that much. But it showed that at any point, the government or even private entities can come in and debank you for your actions. They can debank you for whatever reason. And the thing is, losing access to a bank isn't an issue. There's thousands of financial institutions all over the world. If your bank completely cuts ties with you, it's not hard to go to another bank and just start a new account. Where it becomes an issue is the payment processor, okay? And to give you an idea, if you go to Collective Shout's page, they have made an open letter to, again, 6 of the CEOs for these organizations. So PayPal, MasterCard, Visa, PaySafe Limited, Discover, who fuck still has a Discover card? Japan Credit Bureau. So you've got, again, these organizations, and again, their email is your corporations facilitate and profit from incest, child, like all the craziest shit. So immediately, they're using the most inflammatory shit to go after these organizations. And again, these 6 people basically control how we spend our money. Now, the thing about this is obviously, I don't even think the banks like this shit at all. Nobody likes these organizations. Unfortunately, we all have to interact with them. This is not like, hey, Muda, it's a private company. They can kind of do whatever they want. And that kind of is true, right? Like, if you get banned from something like Twitter or YouTube or whatever, it's not the end of the world, right? Maybe it is if your content, maybe it is if you need that as your primary source of income. But getting debanked, getting your payment processors to not work with you directly impacts your life to a point where you absolutely cannot function, okay? There are parts of the world where obviously you need a bank to, purchase a property or even rent a property or even access basic services, right? Basic things you have to do with money. If you get removed from that, your life becomes substantially difficult. You can basically be unpersoned just by being payment processor. Okay, that's how extreme it goes. And again, it doesn't have to stop at the nudie game, all right? We live in a world where these companies can basically treat the entire area and shape the world to how they want it, right? It's one of the reasons why I hate seeing censorship in regimes like Saudi Arabia, for instance, or China, or really anywhere in the world. I like to believe that since I live in North America, I want the rest of the world to have the same access to information and media that I do, okay? You can absolutely live in parts of the world where they will not allow you to watch anything NSFW. They will arbitrarily place censorships on the most meaningless of things because some people just don't understand what they're censoring. They'll censor whatever they want, and then it never ends. Because, again, the porn games are an easy thing to ban, all right? Most of society will look at this and be like, nothing of value was lost. But then you can always inch closer to that center. You can say, okay, maybe games like Cyberpunk, maybe games like Grand Theft Auto, Baldur's Gate. These games have a lot of sexual innuendo and shit thrown into them. Maybe we should start removing that from society. Hey, we got to get those murder simulators out. This is how it begins, okay? This is how censorship starts to creep slowly in. And the thing is, the scary part about this is that all of the regulations are already being bypassed. It's a hop, skip, and a jump to your calling the payment processor and telling them, remove the fucking thing from the internet, remove that from society. And you know what? It gets removed. Now, the thing that I've always found in my research that's scary about payment processing is how difficult it is to actually start a competitive empire. So, for instance, one of the richest guys in the world, Elon Musk, but I think the richest guy, has spent, I believe, about 25 years starting their own payment processing organization. And they've done it through like X.com, not the current Twitter, but like the old X. And even with Twitter now, where they want to make it the everything app, the roadblocks to getting a payment processor is actually insane. There are litigation that he has to go through. There is pressure from Visa and MasterCard. If the richest guy in the world is having issues trying to start a new payment processor, that should show you that going back to that letter from Collective Shout, this may just be effectively a cartel. Okay, like I'm not saying that in an inflammatory way. This is a organization that effectively controls this group. They control this business, and through their vehement control and lobbying, they can prevent even the richest guy in the world from jumping in and starting a new organization. And if they can stop the richest guy in the world, areas like Steam, none of these organizations have a chance. And it's crazy to think they wield so much power institutionally that even outside of their scope, they can control what everyone else does. I mean, this is not even a conspiracy. I'm not getting conspiratorial. I'm just laying out the facts for what they are. You know, it's not as easy as, hey, can Gabe Newell just start his own payment processor? Can Elon? No. These guys are being actively railroaded. They're stopped from doing it. If the biggest, richest dudes in the world, you know, so rich that they can infiltrate the government in some cases, they can basically do whatever the fuck they want. They work in industry, like Elon Musk works in an industry where he's trying to get a self-driving car regulated onto our streets. He is working to get a multi-ton vehicle to drive itself through our city streets. He is working on regulations like that. And somehow it's easier for him to navigate that fucking world, a world where a car could run me over through AI, possibly, And then it's so difficult for him to get a payment processor started that it's become like, a goddamn obsession at this point. It's crazy. That is something that I feel like if it's difficult for a guy who shoots rockets to space and operates on self-driving technology to get into payment processing, maybe the world should look at how fucked that industry is and maybe ask a bunch of questions. The other thing to also see over here is, again, organizations like Visa and PayPal and MasterCard do not care about the children. Once again, they were happily providing payment processing before, and with just a little bit of pushback, especially when you can bring up the kids and children, they are now actively going out of their way to censor the internet as much as they can. And that is scary. So ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. Ask some questions. Fight back against this. From my understanding, the closest fight back to this, at least in the United States, is S401, Fair Access to Banking Act, which places restrictions on banks, credit unions, and payment card networks if they refuse to do business with a person who complies with the law. Restrictions include prohibiting the use of electronic funds transfers and lending programs. Now, I've read a little bit into this bill, and to be completely fair with you, it's not as toothful as I wanted it to be. But it is the only actual bill out there that is even addressing this. So as important as Stop Killing Games is, stop letting payment processors bend us over and fuck us. Maybe there's a more succinct way to put that. But yeah, please fight back against this, because the future of the internet that you watch, you consume, that open last bastion, okay? And I'm somebody that loves talking about freedom. I have talked about it for fucking 10 years. If it wasn't for free access to the internet and free open access, free access to do whatever I want, I would never have a channel on YouTube. I would never be able to read creepypastas. I would never be able to focus on, the craziest, darkest points of the internet. Hell, the dark web would be a fucking dream and whatnot. This is deeply important. It is. All right. Without this, without free access to information, we don't live in a fucking normal society, okay? We live in a controlled lockdown society where we got to eat our bugs and own nothing and be happy and all that stupid crazy shit. But yeah, anyways, I'm going to be on ramble mode here if I keep going. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it, I am out.